Good evening, and welcome to the Institute of Politics. I'm Al Simpson. I'm honored to serve as the director of that's the way we say it, the director of the Institute of Politics. And this evening, we are most pleased to have a very special guest in the forum. The Institute of Politics was founded in 1966 as a living memorial to President John F. Kennedy. The mission of the Institute is to inspire and encourage young people to enter careers in politics and public service. We try to do this by bringing undergraduate students and others, you being many others, into contact with heads of state, elected officials, policymakers, and political activists. Some of you may have come to know our speaker as a director and an actor, a very successful one at that. And of course, we fellow members of the Screen Actors Guild must stick together. The movie Dave was where I made my fortune, $482. The cheap, rotten, oh no, excuse me. That's enough of that. I won't go into that type of thing. But others may know him because of his activism in American politics. Here is an authentic, lifelong political activist who has played key roles in the presidential campaigns of Bobby Kennedy, George McGovern, and Gary Hart. He is a true believer in the best sense of public life. I met him a few years ago at a Senate reception hosted by Senator Howard Metzenbaum, and yes, Annette was there to relax. Now, there is a very wonderful, bright, and caring woman, and an activist too, and they are very delightful people, even if they are of the other faith, as we say in politics, the other faith. And lately there's been other activities swirling about our speaker, our activist speaker. He has been placing his voice forward, most recently authoring a thoughtful op-ed piece in the New York Times on activism and campaign finance reform. In September, he was honored by Americans for Democratic Action and delivered an impassioned speech on his dissatisfaction with the message emanating from the campaigns of his Democrat colleagues. His name has also been presented as a possible candidate for the presidency. But tonight it is a personal pleasure to introduce to you one of my favorites of the other faith, Warren Beatty. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you, Senator. You know, I think the fact that Annette Bening never tires of telling me how lovable and cuddly you are, that I'll just take the prerogative of speaking to you in your first name.
Alan.
Alan. Okay, Alan. Thank you, Alan. Is Mrs. Simpson here?
He's here.
Mrs. Simpson.
Oh no, she's not here. But neither is Annette.
Well, that's
the point.
Really. Would Mrs. Simpson be watching on C-SPAN or something? Is C-SPAN covering this? Yes. Would she be watching on C-SPAN?
Very likely.
Where would the camera be for C-SPAN? May I call her Ann? I could call her Ann.
You can call her.
Ann, you and me have to have a long talk. You know, Annette's mother and father, by the way, are Republicans.
That's right.
Good. All right. How did you know that?
She told me.
Oh, that's true.
We were both.
Okay.
We were both born in Denver too. You remember? That's a great bump
Iowa.
there. Oh well, close.
I don't want you to take my lack of a necktie here as a sign of disrespect, but I just thought that, you know, if I put on a white shirt and the blue suit and a red tie, that everyone would be frightened. and they would leave. I'm very honored to have been invited to come here tonight. I hope that you'll tell me what you want me to talk about, and I hope that you won't be overly polite. I'm not asking you to be rude, but there's no need to be overly polite. We can talk about movies, we can talk about sex and drugs and rock and roll in Hollywood if you want to. Anything that you would like to talk about is fine by me. I think it's only fair to warn you that I'm going to leave here at 4 a.m. no matter how much fun I'm having. I've been looking forward to coming to the Kennedy Library to speak. Why aren't you sitting together? I don't get it. Oh. Yes. Well, good for you. I wanted to come here for a long time. I've had a lot of good times I've had some good times here at Harvard. I didn't attend Harvard, but I spent a lot of hours here researching John Reed in the Widener Library, and I've had people have been nice to me around here. But I would think that the main reason that I'm so happy to be invited here was because President Kennedy was the person who really activated me in politics, and was the person who taught me really never to minimize the political value of the access that an artist or an entertainer has, and if used carefully, that it can be so valuable in the public discourse, particularly in the area of dissent. I don't know what he thought of me. He always kind of acted like he liked me, but I think if he did, it probably was because I dissented from him once. I dissented from acting in a movie that he wanted me to act in. There was a movie about him, and he wanted me to play him in a movie about a PT boat in the South Pacific during the war, and Pierre Salinger came running out to Hollywood with the script, which I read right away. And then in my callow arrogance, I called the president and said, not only do I not want to play the part, but I don't really think the story holds together very well, and I don't think you should let Warner Brothers make the movie, which of course got me kicked off of the Warner lot. And Jack Warner never spoke to me again until I did Bonnie and Clyde. But of course, they made the movie, and I thought it was fine. But the last time I ever saw him was it was in November of '63. I came into a party, and he looked at me, and I said, "Come here." And I came over to him, and he looked at me for a long time, and he said, "Well, you sure did the right thing on that movie." But so much for the first time that I dissented from a Democratic administration. The second time that I dissented from a Democratic administration was serious. That was on the war in Vietnam, and it led to my campaigning with Robert Kennedy. And that dissent, which became so active on this campus and throughout the country, that really gave a new energy to my own politics. And so since then, if I were to try to identify my politics, which is sometimes necessary to do, because if you make a movie like Reds, they think you're a communist, or let alone if you make Bugsy or Bonnie and Clyde, they think you're a psychopathic killer. So I try to identify my politics. I always say, well, I'm a Robert Kennedy liberal, or I'm whatever a liberal of the '60s should have turned into by now. So, although the present Democratic administration, I think, deserves a lot of sympathy for having to cope with what many of us would call heartless Republican Congresses, in what Wellstone or Ted Kennedy would call the Democratic wing of the Democratic Party, when we, you know what that means.
Yeah, I do.
When we hear the litany of the past 7 years of triangulation and centrism and bargain after settlement spun back to us after it's been cosmeticized as progress, then once again it's time to dissent. But why is it at this point that we have no presidential candidate willing to dissent? from proudly advertising this economic expansion as a boom of unparalleled prosperity for the nation, when 60% of the nation isn't doing any better in 1999 than it was doing in 1989, or when the poverty level has hardly changed at all, or when child poverty is 4 times that of Western Europe, or when the 26% rise of extreme child poverty over the past year, or in my home city, the richest town in Los Angeles in the country, 1 out of 3 children live below the poverty level. And homicide is still the leading cause of death in children under 18, or when the officials of 30 other major cities say that the economic expansion has really had no positive impact on hunger or homelessness, or when the poorest fifth of families headed by a single mother have lost $577 in income and benefits between 95 and 97, or when there were 56% more layoffs in 98 than in the year before, or when a study of 4 northwestern states shows that half of the available jobs don't pay a livable wage, or when the salaries of the chief executive officers of American corporations over the past 10 years have increased from 42 times that of the worker to 419 times of the worker, or when the disparity of income has done nothing but increase at a faster and faster clip, or when the bottom fifth of the population don't have as much money as they had in 1977, and the upper fifth has 43% more, or when 2,700,000,000 people have the same amount of wealth as the lowest 100 million. Now, do we belong to a party that just sort of sweeps all this stuff under the rug and exists in some kind of a Potemkin village and says, quote, most things are going right in America, unquote? Or is the Democratic Party still the party that Hubert Humphrey said has as its mission to take care of the people in the dawn of life and in the shadows of life and in the twilight of life? What would Hubert Humphrey say? Or what would Jack Kennedy or Bobby Kennedy say if they could come back today and see how their Democratic Party has failed to evolve? Where is the dissent? Huh? Where is the voice of the mission? Where is the voice of protest? Have we come to the point now where the Democratic Party has to have a Republican president in order to regain that voice? Who's kidding? A rising tide is not lifting all boats. And if there isn't a liberal Democratic Party to raise its voice about it, then who will? You know, in the fall of 1988, the New York Times raised its voice. There was a Republican president. They did, in the fall of 1988, some 50 stories on the homeless, and 5 of them were on the front page. Now, with no change in the homeless figures in 1998, they did 10 stories, and none of them were on the front page. I think that without hearing active protest from the Democratic Party, you're not really going to hear about those people. You're just going to hear about the unprecedented, unparalleled expansion and prosperity of globalization. Why? I think it's because of the big money in politics. 96% of the people in America make no campaign contributions at all. Every campaign in America, from every office, from dog catcher in the smallest county to the President of the United States is financed by less than 4% of the people. And the tide is lifting their boats. The 58 million or 60 million raised by Bush, that has come from 0.3% of the people. That, in my opinion, is why less than half of the people vote. They feel they've got nothing to do with the process of selecting the candidates, and they're right. The primary cancer in this sick system of big money in politics has metastasized into every area of the government. But in fact, the billion-dollar tax subsidies, the tax breaks, the pork barrel, the corporate welfare, they're not necessarily the biggest tumors in this malignancy. In the next few days, the Financial Services Modernization Act of 1999, that's after 10 years of, and something like $300 million of campaign contributions and lobbying costs, is expected to go to the president for signature. Americans seem unaware of the risks and of the ramifications regarding their privacy. The bill, you know, knocks down all the walls between the brokerage houses and the banks and the insurance companies. And the big contributors have persuaded our leaders that in enormous size, that there's enormous strength, and I guess they're right about that. But what's going to happen if one of these huge conglomerates that's inevitably going to come out of this repeal of the Glass-Steagall legislation of the early 30s, what's going to happen if one of these companies fails? To help to keep from sinking the global economy, is the American taxpayer going to be asked to bail that company out at what could be 10, 20 times the cost of the saving and loans debacle of the 80s? Our taxpayers are bailing out thieves in Mexico, in Russia, in Indonesia, and other countries, and at the same time, they're bailing out major American financial houses who refuse to face the consequences of their bad investments overseas. And our government is reacting to this crisis by crisis, when what we should be doing is helping to construct a new set of international ground rules to curb speculation and financial abuse. But our major financial institutions don't want to be regulated like that. They want the freedom to move their money anywhere they want to, and to be as free from risk and rules as they can. The brilliance of America, I think, is in the successful harnessing of the dynamic creativity of the private sector for the public good, and nobody in their right mind wants to dampen that. But I think our government is dangerously susceptible to a corporate economic globalization that isn't really free trade. It's corporate managed trade, while the global economy is not really working yet for most people. But Pat Buchanan is wrong. We can't turn our backs on it or build a wall. We have to work with it. The problem in this new economy, I think, is when these financial institutions and these corporations have too much influence over government actions. They too often set the rules when things like labor and environment aren't even invited to the table. I think we're in danger of a slow-motion coup d'etat of big money's interest over the public interest. So the global rules written into trade agreements like NAFTA and enforced by organizations like the WTO protect things like patents and intellectual property rights, but not labor rights. Profits, but not people. Investments, but not the environment. And we know the results. We have growth, increasing trade, some development, many people making a lot of money. But we also have 475 billionaires in the world who now have the same amount of money as half of the people on this planet. That's half of the people in this room have the same amount of money as 3 billion people. We've got sweatshops again, we've got child labor, we have the destruction of forests, fish, water, air. And as far as I know, I don't think there's a word of requirements on labor and environment or product safety in the negotiations now being carried on for Chinese admission to the World Trade Organization. Of course our stocks have gone up, but what we're doing is making the world safe for globalization rather than making globalization safe for the world. If we don't turn our energies to helping the losers in globalization and try to make the world economy work for everybody, we're going to see a reaction, I think, that'll make us wish that we had paid attention to this and that we'd been serious about education and retraining and not simply rhetorical, and particularly not left this issue to Pat Buchanan to exploit. Why should the Democratic candidates all offer their devotion to globalization as if these markets were created by God rather than investors? Could it possibly be that the candidates in both the Democratic and the Republican Party are by definition those who've raised the most money from the winners in the globalization? We don't need a third party. We need a second party. Let's talk about another tumor, okay? Health care, I think, is a basic human right. I also think that the government has as its responsibility to guarantee this basic human right for all of its citizens. There are only two governments in the developed world that don't guarantee this basic human right. One is South Africa, and one is the United States. I think the best way ever proposed for the guarantee of health care was the Health Security Act. It was S3. It was a bill drawn up by Ted Kennedy and Walter Reuther and Lane Kirkland, among others. It was a single-payer system that gave everybody access to health care, and it had quality standards for the practice of medicine. And of course, because it only had one payer, it cost less. That bill was buried over and over again during the 70s by the insurance industry and the pharmaceutical industry and the AMA, and they spent whatever it took to keep it from coming out of committee. The same people, interestingly enough, were against Medicare. But you know, old people study the issues and they go out and vote. Children, minorities, and poor people don't vote. So Medicare was passed, but the big money was able to kill the Health Security Act and really every other proposal ever made to guarantee this basic human right. Now, does anybody in either party now advocate the repeal of Medicare? I don't think so. It's a single-payer system. It costs the government much less to do the same thing as it costs the insurance companies. Some studies will tell you that it costs 4 cents out of every dollar to do the same thing, and for the government to do the same thing as it takes the insurance companies to do 20. It costs the insurance companies 20 to 30 cents out of every dollar. But nobody talks about single payer anymore. It works with Medicare. Nobody talks about it, at least not in the company of big money. By now, the vice president has made some incremental proposals, which I think guarantee child health care by the year 2005. And Senator Bradley has made a suggestion for a plan that is similar to a plan that was developed in the Bush White House, which I don't think the insurance companies will be unhappy about. But they're arguing now over whether this plan exceeds the cost of this plan, the surpluses. Neither candidate wants to commit to a health care proposal that'll exceed the surpluses. What surpluses? Who says they're going to be surpluses? What I think the next president of the United States ought to do is call a special session of Congress, get those guys in there, and no matter what the big money does or how much it spends to make that president unpopular, not let that Congress go home until they've guaranteed this basic human right for every American. Whether the surpluses or not. Now, does anybody doubt the value or the role of campaign contributors in something like keeping the defense budget as high as it is, or trying to privatize Social Security, or stifling gun control, or hampering environmental legislation, or buying subsidies for nuclear, or for coal, or for oil, or underpricing fees for grazing, or mining, or lumbering on public lands, or giving away the $70 to $80 billion, the digital spectrum to the broadcasters for absolutely nothing in the telecommunications bill, which both of our Democratic candidates supported. You know, broadcasters not only give a lot of money, but they can say what candidates that you see and how long you can see them. It's a very rare and very exotic bird in Congress who's willing to fly up against the broadcasters. A democracy becomes a plutocracy in these circumstances, a state in which the wealthy class rules. We're told by the Republican Senator Mitch McConnell that the public is bored by campaign finance reform. In fact, I think that if the public ever focuses on what's really happening, nothing is going to agitate them more. And I'd like to help bring that about. You know, if the complete campaign costs of the last two election cycles are put together, that is 96 and 98, in the presidential election of 96, the cost was $2.1 billion. 98 was $1.5 billion. You put them together, you have $3.6 billion for the 4 years. If you break that down with public financing, that'd come to about $3.50 per person per year. That's with complete public financing of all the general elections and all the primaries. That's really not much for the public to pay for knowing that their representatives really don't owe anything to anybody but the public. It's estimated that $1,000 per year per taxpayer is spent on corporate welfare and pork barrel. That's $3.50 to get rid of that is really not a bad deal. By my calculation, it'd be about $996.50 per taxpayer. Now, who would not favor this?
Okay. I'll pay my share.
Okay. Almost all the former members of the Senate and the House are in favor of this. Not so much the incumbents. Not so much the incumbents. Incumbents can raise more money. They got something to sell. And they have learned to deal in that system, and they don't want to change that system. 96% of the House and Senate incumbents were reelected. Senate incumbents raised more than twice as much as their challengers, and House incumbents raised nearly 5 times as much. Now, both of our Democratic candidates indicate that they advocate public financing of campaigns, but I don't think they really mean it, because they wouldn't include the primaries. What is the point of publicly financing the general elections if you're going to privately finance the primaries? Isn't that a little like asking the public to pick up most of the check after the rich contributors have already ordered the dinner? I would hope that if they come here, I don't know, you probably invited them, or have you, if Senator Bradley and Vice President Gore were to come here, I hope that you'll ask them why they wouldn't publicly finance the primaries. And I'll tell you something, you might mention to them that the $1.5 billion that the 98 cycle cost, which is for 2 years, is the same amount of money as the ethanol subsidies. And that comes every year.
In Iowa.
Iowa. As Mr. Madison wrote in the Federalist Papers, quote, "Who are to be the elected leaders of the federal representatives? Not the rich more than the poor, not the learned more than the ignorant, nor the haughty heirs of distinguished names more than the humble sons of obscure and unpropitious fortune. The electors are to be the great body of the people of the United States," unquote. Now, here's the thing. Do we agree with Madison? Do we believe in one man, one vote? Or do we secretly think maybe it's better to leave it up to the oligarchs? Or do we trust democracy? If we trust democracy, I think the time has come to pay for it. And this is never going to happen from the top down. It's going to come from the grassroots up. It'll come in the public opinion polls that the elected officials so doggedly follow. And I think it's up to us, the public, to say to our representatives, either we're going to get your vote to let us buy back our government, or you're not going to get our vote to remain in government. And I'll tell you something, I think in the long run, I think even Mitch McConnell's going to love us for it, because if for no other reason, freed from fundraising, he's going to have the time as the young idealist I don't doubt that he once was, to do all the things that he wanted to do when he first went into public service. Forgive me, I've gone on too long. What would you like to ask me?
Well, that's wonderful. Thank you. I will. Start with this microphone, and if you'll just give your name and a question.
Mr. Beatty, my name is Heather Woodruff. I'm a first year here at the college. And I'm curious why you criticize the salary disparity of CEOs that seemingly hurt the equality, but fail to mention the disparity between actors who make millions for each film.
Very good. Very good. You've mentioned it. Done. Yeah. Good for you.
Do you feel that excuse me for asking a second.
Excuse me?
Do you feel that is also another area where we could find equalí and somehow even the playing field?
Of course it is. Of course it is. Do you want me to leave it at that, or yeah? Well, you're quite right. Everything is out of whack. We're going in the wrong direction on the disparity of wealth, as we've never done before. It's ruthless. It's something that took place. I think the great increase began in the 80s, and at the same time that greed became permissible and advocated, at the same time that government was stigmatized. And I promise never to take another nickel.
I think we'll relieve you of any further activity. This young man, and then up to that microphone.
Hi, my name's Micah Lewin, and I'm a freshman here at the college, and I just want to say that you're my hero, first of all. But I just wanted to know why you thought the terms democratic socialism and liberalism have fallen into a bad light recently, and do you see anything wrong with government financing of worker-owned industry or creation of worker-owned industry to help solve some problems of disparity?
No, I think it's I think it's great, and what I believe is that we're criticized. The Great Society was criticized all during the for throwing money at things, but I'm a person that believes that when you do spend some money, you will find innovation and energy and invention to follow. So I believe in an activist government. So yes, I'm with you, and you are now my hero. Thank you.
Here to this microphone.
Yeah.
Hi, my name is Owen Robinson. I'm a sophomore here at the college. I think it's great to have you here. I'd actually like to know, especially in light of these last couple of days, what's happened in Honolulu and up in Seattle, where you think the Democratic Party should head in terms of gun control and in terms of the Second Amendment?
Gun control is such a good example of how a lobby can smother a bill. I began to work in gun control in 1968 when the Tidings Bill was introduced. Do you remember the Tidings Bill? The Tidings Bill, 85% of the public was in favor. This was after Bobby was killed. And the figures I remember were 85% in favor of gun control legislation. And by the time that the NRA got finished with it, it was something like 30%. And poor Joe Tidings got knocked out of the Senate. It's appalling. There's just so much evidence to show that we're unlike any other country in the world in this respect, and we just have to do something about it. And I agree with you.
This red microphone there, please.
Hi, my name is Dan, and I was wondering what lessons you take from Bulworth and how you think a real-life Bulworth would do if he were to run.
What lessons do I take from Bulworth?
Yeah.
Oh, I don't even. By now I don't even know if I understand Bulworth. Do you follow me? Bulworth is a nervous breakdown. I don't want to have a nervous breakdown. So one lesson I would take is try to avoid a nervous breakdown. I guess that one lesson I guess I would take from Bulworth is that if you're trying to make a picture nowadays, don't pay too much attention to how it does financially on a Friday night or a Saturday night or a Sunday night. You got to make them for the long haul. And I happen to love the movie, so that's my lesson. All right.
Right here.
Hi, my name is Josh. I'm a freshman here at the college.
Yeah.
So you're not. Hi. Yeah. So you're not interested in running for president. The people who you'd like to see run for president aren't running.
Took you long enough to get around to that, I must say.
Yeah.
Am I what? Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Oh. The people who you'd like to see run for president also aren't running for president. And the two issues that you talk most about, campaign finance reform and anti-poverty, aren't exactly cutting edge. In fact, they're fairly trendy topics. Therefore, how exactly do you plan on leading the Democratic Party back to the pure Democratic Party that you would like to see again?
How do I plan on leading the Democratic Party?
You've had this recent political outburst. You've made a few... No, not that you haven't been a political activist for a long time.
Okay.
Jeez.
Okay. Now let me ask you a question.
Yes.
From where did you hear this outburst?
Well, you made the speech in California, there was an article in the New York Times, and now you're here. Those are three things very recently.
But you are aware that I've not done a single interview with the press and not a single interview on television or radio. You're not aware of that?
I didn't.
I'm not telling you that.
I'm just saying that there have been.
One question.
Yes, the question.
Okay.
We're doing
The question
well.
Look, I have no plan. Do you like any of my movies? You know.
Like Bulworth.
If you pick one that you like, Didn't it take some organization to do that? I like to organize. I'm a good organizer. If I were running for president at this time, I would be well organized. I don't have a single campaign consultant. I don't have any staff. I don't have a nickel that I've raised. I haven't spent a nickel. I haven't asked a person to stay out of some choice that they would make. I've only tried to state the issues. I fought like hell to try to get a group of guys to run for president. I wish they had. I still wish they would, but they're not. And I'm hoping that Bradley and Gore, who are very good men, will come more over to the liberal side of the party. What I would like to do is what any of us try to do, is to try to affect the agenda. And you never know, really, if you affect the agenda, or whether something that you say you might do or you would consider doing might affect the agenda. You just never know. But I want to be specific. Whatever outburst that you've heard, it didn't come from. If you call an op-ed piece an outburst, yes, or a speech, well, you know, I was polite.
Thank you. Right here.
Yeah.
Keep going, keep going, keep going. I mean, that's what I would say. I think we have to build a populist prairie fire in this country to pass federal reform, and you've already impacted the debate, so hats off. My name's Janice Fine. I'm a doctoral student at MIT in political science. I'm also a member of the advisory board of Massachusetts Voters for Clean Elections. Oh. And this is an auspicious day for your visit, because this is the one-year anniversary of our having passed a public financing law in Massachusetts.
Yes.
And now, right. And now one man, our Speaker of the House, Tom Finneran, is standing blocking the will of 1.1 million voters who passed this law by a 2-to-1 margin. So my question for you is two parts. One is, if our beloved Speaker were in the audience tonight, what would you say to him? And second of all, what's your message to Massachusetts voters about the fact that we have a government that thinks that we didn't know what we were voting for last November?
I think you have to activate, you have to get him on the spot, you have to be reasonable with him, and you have to publicize it. You have to bring attention to it. Get somebody famous, if you need, to come and, you know. I don't know him, so I don't want to be unfair or tough on him, but I've heard about, what are you doing, Alan? But I don't want to be unfair or tough on him, but I've heard about this, and I think it's shameful, sure. So, if I can help, let me know.
Thank you.
Yeah.
To this microphone, please.
Hi.
Hi.
I want to say I thought it was a little funny that everyone's taking your picture, and George Stephanopoulos was walking around earlier looking a little lonely, like, isn't anybody going to take my picture? There is now. Someone take his picture, huh? My question is this, while major corporations are clearly the bigger players in elections, how do you feel about Hollywood's influence, and for that matter, your own influence?
On elections?
On elections and politics, yeah.
How do I feel about it? Well, I think that people are very skeptical. I think they're very quick to embarrass and ridicule people. And I think that when you are well-known, you develop a thick skin, and you have to see the overall goal, and hope to move the agenda, and you do the best thing that you can do. If you're just famous, I don't think people will put up with something that you say for more than a day or two. They might be curious. I think you're treated as an oddity. I think it's true that the people who are not in that main center where all the money is are marginalized by the media when possible. I think that people are grouped together. People who have something serious to say are very often grouped with people who have really said nothing and have no interest. And so if you asked me a very large question, because obviously entertainers, Hollywood, movies, what someone called the great near art form of the 20th century, you can't minimize it. We do the best we can do. Art is art. Politics is politics. Very hard to get together. Very hard.
Right here, please.
Hello, Mr. Beatty. My name is Robert Ortiz. I'm a senior at the college, and I'm also vice president of Harvard Right to Life. About a month ago, it was reported that you were pro-life, and our school newspaper took the opportunity to publish on the editorial page that they hoped that your political fortunes would tank faster than Ishtar. I was wondering if you could respond.
You know, George Stephanopoulos was in Ishtar. You know that.
Maybe that's why.
That wasn't me. That was Dustin Hoffman and George Stephanopoulos. Let me tell you what happened. Let me tell you where that came from. I walked into a party for my lawyer had written a book, and there was a party for it. And I walked in, and I saw that Walter Lippmann-like oracle, Matt Drudge. And honestly, I was a little starstruck, you know. I thought, wow, Matt Drudge. He was talking to Dustin Hoffman, speaking of Ishtar. And I walked over, and Dustin introduced me to Matt Drudge, and he looked at me, and he said, well, he said, now that you got 3 kids, now how do you feel about abortion? And I said, well, it really makes you think, doesn't it? That was all. Now about was it 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 4 weeks ago? He made a statement that he had a scoop on, I guess it was Fox News, that I was pro-life. I'm pro-choice. So.
This microphone, please.
Yeah.
My name is Nikki Usher, and I'm a freshman here at the college. My question to you has a lot to do with what Josh said before about the outburst of media attention that you've been getting.
Yeah.
How do you reconcile the use of your star power with your appeal to issues of substance and a redirection of the Democratic Party?
Well, I think what you do is you skate on thin ice, and you try to be as responsible and as careful as you can be. You know, if you're not, they're just going to make a fool out of you in 20 minutes anyway. But if you see it as an opportunity to do something that's good, if it makes you feel better, you do it. It's that simple, I think.
Thank you. This microphone.
Hi, my name is Irene Janis, and I'm a first year here. I was wondering, what are your thoughts on the death penalty, and specifically the case involving Mumia Abu-Jamal?
Oh, boy.
I asked you before, but I don't think you had a chance to finish.
Yes, you did. I said to you that it was hard for me to give a really intelligent answer on the specific case, although I think I know what I think, but I don't want to say in public yet what I think. The death penalty scares the hell out of me because we're now seeing something like 1 out of 8 cases of people on death row proven innocent with DNA testing. So I've always been against capital punishment, and I still am.
That was you. Did we get that? I'm scribbling. You were next, I believe. You just asked the question. Yes, up here, please. I was right.
I'm Anthony Chavez.
I'm starting to get good on this about the third hour. I want you to know this.
This is not difficult.
Yeah, okay, good. Yeah.
Yes, now, there.
What?
I'm Anthony Chavez, and I think I'm the only one from the Kennedy School that's come up yet. Just to let you know, Mr. Beatty, this is our building.
You seem more... What'd you say? What'd you say? What'd you say?
School invading the building.
I sense that you're more famous than I am, but go ahead.
Some people do call me an actor, but I actually have an interest in pop culture figures and how they can make an influence on public policy and democracy.
Yeah.
And this is going to come off a little bit as a criticism, but I hope you see it as positive.
You didn't mean a criticism of me.
Oh, we'll find out.
Okay.
I think pop culture figures have a huge influence.
Yeah.
And I think the fact that we're an overburdened society that goes to entertainment for relaxation, we go to recreation, we go to sports.
Yeah.
These people have a huge impact on the way we think, especially in this media information society.
Yeah.
I think you have a lot of great potential.
Yeah.
And when I hear... But this is just coming from, I think, some of us in public policy here.
Yes.
You lose credibility when there are questions that you can't answer very well, or they kind of get you tied up, or there are sometimes there's just things that sometimes I think people say, you know, I think you're onto something, but it's just missing.
Yeah.
I know.
Asking a question.
Well, here's a question. Here's an important question.
It's fine. It's a critique. Look,
I have a question because I don't want the question to go away.
No.
Well, no, please. There are other people who want to ask.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
No, this is a question, but
We'll do that.
this frames it. I think that there are stars that sometimes people that have tendencies to not want to get help in terms of political consulting, where they can do.
No. I think you're onto something. Go ahead.
Yeah.
Please. Go ahead.
He says I'm onto something here.
Hold on a second. Let me just give you the first part. Because we've kind of devolved into this culture that you speak of that is so interested in entertainment. Don't blame the entertainers. Hope that the entertainers can utilize it in some way for the positive.
Which gets to my question.
Oh, good.
Do you think entertainers... Do you think pop culture figures are open to the fact to receive political consulting, find ways to maximize the power they have to just utilize the methods of making changes not only at a grassroots level but in legislature?
Oh, you lost me on that one. Ask me again. I'm sorry.
I think there's great potential for pop culture figures and people who have expertise in how to move things in through legislature, how to move things through grassroots level to get together. What do you think about that? And do you think that there are those pop culture figures that are opposed to that? Do you think they're open to that idea?
I don't know what you mean.
It's okay.
I'm sorry.
I tried my best. It's okay.
Right here.
Yeah.
This young lady, please.
Hi, my name is Danya Planker. I'm getting my master's degree here at the Kennedy School.
Yeah.
And
This is the rival.
I was working at handgun control before I came here, and I personally was horrified that it took the school shootings in suburban middle-class communities to get American people to finally do something about gun control. And I'm wondering what you think the American public can do and how we can get the American public to react to something like universal health care, which middle-class America doesn't see as directly affecting them.
Mm-hmm. Well, of course, it does affect them. It all affects us. But what you're asking me, how to activate people? First answer is I don't know. But you try to do the best that you can do. You try to do the things that give you some sort of inspiration and energy. You know, it's not a sin to enjoy it. And I think you should remember that the greatest amount of energy is coming right now at your point in life, and I wish I was your age. I don't know how to give you anything other than an extremely long answer, and if you to that question. And I know that I want to be here till 4 o'clock. I really do.
Thank you very much. Right here.
Thank you.
Erin?
Yeah.
Hi, my name is Erin Ashwell, and I'm one of the many undergraduates who claim the IOP. I was interested in knowing how you reconcile the constitutional concern of giving campaign donations as free speech with your proposal for campaign finance reform.
Well, see, I don't think that. I don't think it is what we're talking about is free speech. I think it's very expensive speech. But look, I've been becoming active with a group called Public Campaign, and the point of the public financing in this group is that yes, you can satisfy the requirements of Buckley versus Vallejo, and you can do that by allowing people who reject the public financing to spend, and so my what I would say to you is that what we need is to have the voices that are discouraged from going into politics or afraid to go into politics because they'll get no money at all financed. Those other people can finance themselves as long as they don't take the public monies. That's the short answer to what I say. This doesn't circumvent Buckley.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Right here, please.
Hello, my name's Felicity Spector, and I'm a student here at the Kennedy School. I want to know whether you're worried about the cult of celebrity in politics. And obviously you say that you learned a good lesson never to underestimate the value of celebrity. Well, I'm wondering whether part of the reason that money is so important is because politicians feel that their image has to be everything. And are you worried that your speaking out on political issues in a way contributes towards this cult?
No.
What do you say to people who say that because you're a celebrity, they shouldn't take your political views seriously?
They're dumb.
No, you've asked a question. You're very good, though. That was good. I like the way you did that. Get behind that post again.
And I'm getting faster, don't you think?
You're getting very fast. That was a good try. I admire that kind of activity. Yes, now right here. Right there.
My name is Claudia Graves, and I'm a sophomore at the college.
Oh, I'm sorry.
And,
Get you.
oh.
Please. No, go right ahead.
Okay.
Please.
Well, my question was just about the movie Bulworth. Why you chose to do the movie kind of in the context of hip-hop culture, like with the homegirls, you know, with the rapping. And I mean, I really liked it, but was there a deeper motivation behind that, or was it like fun, or something, you know what I'm saying?
Well, you know, well, look, it is entertainment, you know. You want to try to get people's attention and try to get them to see what you've done. And, you know, I don't know, I just thought it might be funny, this guy in the blue suit and the red tie and the white shirt, having a breakdown and going to the street when he knew that the energy that was coming out of the street was what it was. And so if you're asking me, was it fun? Yes.
But I mean, like, would you choose that context to specifically speak to people in the ghetto, you know, or like lower?
Well, you know,
income?
in a way, it's a kind of a sophisticated kind of satire no. I think that under what circumstances would be my question? I mean, to speak to people in the ghetto if I were supporting someone in a political campaign, or if I were for some reason running for some office in a political campaign, no, I think I'd probably be a lot straighter. I mean, you know.
I just want to say I really like that black ski cap.
Thank you.
It's really cute.
Right.
Yeah.
This young man, please.
My name is Ben. I'm a freshman at the college.
Yeah.
I'm wondering whether there's any chance whatsoever you'll run for president and or what circumstances it would take.
Well, look, it's not. Here's the answer. I don't know.
Next question. Right here.
Yeah.
Hi, my name is Scott Pullman. I'm a senior at Tufts University. I'm one of the young idealists that you talked about. I feel that, first of all, let me say I admire all the activism that you've had in your life with Bobby Kennedy and George McGovern. I was wondering, what advice do you have for people like myself and my generation about people, they're interested in politics and they want to come, but how can you get them involved beyond that, doing the grassroots, doing the organizing, the door-to-door, really, how do you get people to really put their heart and souls into a life of political activism?
Here's what I'd say. Until the money gets solved, nothing's going to happen. I would say at this time, in 1999, 2000, money, campaign finance reform. Change the wording if it puts people to sleep. It's all about the money now. It's all about the money which goes into the television, into everything else, into what some people call bribery. It's all about the money. Until that's solved, you're not going to want to go into politics, so solve that.
Thanks.
Question here.
Hi, my name is Alex Rubalcava. I'm a sophomore at the college.
Yeah.
You speak about how you want to bring a greater populism into American government at this point. Yet so far you've spoken at fundraisers and events in Los Angeles and here at the Kennedy School at Harvard.
Yeah.
When are you going to take your message into the inner cities, into inner city churches, rural state fairs? When are you going to take your message to the people?
Well, these are people, you know.
These are people.
These are people. These are influential people. And, you know, you do the best that you can do. I also make movies, you know. I'm writing 2 scripts at the same time. Invite me to a church, you know, maybe I'll come. The situation with me has been, I don't know if you've been following this particular thing that's been happening about me lately. It's unusual. It's unusual. So for me to suddenly, like, go into some kind of a campaign swing would be a little nutty, maybe a little misleading. I'm not doing it that way right now. So that's the best way I could right here.
I'm Mike Schwartz. I'm a student at the Kennedy School. I want to first thank you very much for coming and talk with us.
Thank you for
my question is, we talked a little bit today about gun violence, as well as the growing wage disparity.
Yeah.
And some could say that the media and entertainment contributes to that mindset of Americans in terms of movies that portray that as something good, violence and wealth. Are there things that we can do outside of grassroots efforts? Are there regulations that should be put in place or other things for media to help address that? Or do you think it's not a problem?
Oh, I think it's a problem, but I don't think that you can, look, the British, the South Africans, you know, all of these other countries have some sort of gun control. They show the same movies. Our statistics are way out of whack. You know the statistics in relation to other countries. They're looking at the same movies, and they're looking at the same movies in English. What makes sense to me is that we have to do something about guns. It's just, you know, I've said it over and over. But there's no easy solution to this. We now have, I think, a gun and a half. I may be a little off here, for every man, woman, and child in the United States. And interestingly, guns last. So it's a huge, huge problem. Jackie?
Hi, I'm Jackie Newmeyer. I'm a junior at the college. Movie actors and presidents have the potential to be role models. Is it appropriate for us to scrutinize the private lives of public figures, including personal histories and maybe youthful indiscretion?
Does 50 count as youthful? I don't think you can avoid it. I don't think you can avoid it. It's just a fact of life. There's a loss of privacy. You know, I think that if you allow what you're calling youthful indiscretions, or these things that I don't think really have a lot to do with, you know, the haves and the have-nots, to cloud the issue and to come to all kinds of judgments on those, what I think are very trivial matters on people and public policy, I think is a terrible mistake. But the attention span seems to be decreasing and decreasing, so it's kind of hard for people to stay with public issues. That's why I say we always come back to the money, because if the money is solved, then I think more interesting people are going to get into public life and make these issues more interesting.
Two more, a couple more. One more here, please.
Yes, Mr. Beatty. My name is Carrie Schuchart, and I'm a sophomore at the college. Getting back to the money issue, say you remove the money. There's still the problem that you spoke of earlier in voter patterns. What we're dealing with is the people living in poverty, minorities, children aren't voting. What do we do about the problems then? If we remove the money from the elections, the people who are going to vote for different people still aren't voting.
Well, I don't think you remove the money. You pay the money. The public pays the money so that people can be heard, that more interesting people can go into public life. Make these things clear. I don't think that the American people are any more heartless than the people in Western Europe. They're simply not aware of the situation, and I think that there is an awful lot of propaganda on the other side. I think once we solve the money, I think the Democratic Party is going to find its voice again, and it's going to find its heart again, and people are going to be are going to be participating again, and the voting level will go up when they get interested. It's very interesting. I think we're just a skip and a jump from getting people interested.
Just take these final three, the one, and then these two here, and that will be it.
I'll take as many as you want to take.
I know, you're great.
I know.
But usually it's about an hour and 15 minutes.
I wanted 4 hours, you know.
Well, what the hell? Okay. I'll be out back.
Okay.
I'll be out there waiting.
Yeah.
No, right there, and then we'll try.
Sure.
My name is Brad Stone. I'm a sophomore at the college.
You got the time, I've got the beer.
What? For that song. You got the money. I got
My name is Brad Stone. I'm a sophomore at the college. Yeah. And obviously, you've stated your belief of the importance of campaign finance reform.
Yeah.
And I mean, I would certainly argue that there's one candidate for president right now who's certainly talking about it, and his name is John McCain. And I'm wondering what you think of Senator McCain and what you think of the McCain-Feingold plan.
Well, here's what I think. First of all, McCain is a friend of mine, a pretty good friend, you know. Annette and I went down and spent the 4th of July with John McCain and Cindy McCain in Arizona. So, you know, I think he's just a terrific guy. And I think that he's a very honest man. I certainly disagree with his conservative politics.
Well, what about the finance reform?
Now, what is but McCain-Feingold, that gets rid of soft money, which God knows is a good thing to do. Whether, you know, I had mixed feelings about when it finally got chipped away at to such an extent. I had a sort of mixed feelings about the incrementalism of it, because I thought that the Republicans would turn around and say, okay, we gave you your campaign finance reform. I don't think that's campaign finance reform at all. The Bush campaign, the $58–60 million, and no soft money in that. And so I think that McCain-Feingold, and by the way, I don't know Feingold, but he seems to be a terrific man. It's a start, but nowhere near what we have to do in campaign finance reform. And I think that the anger that I think that the public feels now about the failure of even McCain-Feingold to pass could be utilized in trying to get some real campaign finance reform. But as I said before, it's going to have to happen from the grassroots up. It's never going to happen in the Senate, in the House, I don't think. I hope it will, but I don't think it'll happen that way. The public has to demand it.
Right here, that.
My name's Alex. I'm a high school junior.
This question's going to be tough. I can sense this coming.
You already kind of touched on it, actually. In light of your performance in Bulworth, I was wondering if you listen to hip hop, and if you do, what do you hear in it?
I don't know. Yeah, I listen to it, but you know, I'm an old-fashioned guy. You know, it's not, as someone said to me not long ago, it's not my glass of tea. But I like it. I like it. You know, I tend to listen to the guys that I got to know when I was making Bulworth. So, you know, I like Dre, I like Snoop, I like, you know, I love them.
You talked about like a voice of dissent.
Sorry,
do you hear any of that?
Did what?
You talked about a voice of dissent. Do you hear any of that in hip hop?
Oh yes. Oh yes. I think the real energy that's coming out of hip hop is, you know, there's a whole lot of people who kind of look like me that don't hear anything. You know that now. I think I'm hearing something, you know, but I'm probably not hearing as much as you are. But I might be. I might be.
Hi, Mr. Beatty. My name is Jack, and I'm a freshman at the college. You referred to certain political figures who you urged recently to run for the presidency. Yeah. I was wondering if you could talk about those figures and why you consider them perhaps more interesting and better qualified than the candidates who have ended up running.
Well, I can only go on people's records, you know. I want to say how much respect I have for Gore and for Bradley. I think they're very, very decent men. They've given their lives to public service. They could have made a lot of money in the private sector. They're really good men, and I don't know either of them very well. They've been extremely respectful to me. I'm really interested in where they stand on things. So when I talk about Wellstone or Kennedy or Jackson or Gephardt or Mario Cuomo, you know, an interesting thing happened. Somebody sent me, they wanted to show me this room, this strange room, you know, and they sent me a tape of Mario Cuomo. And I listened to the speech. Did any of you hear Mario Cuomo when he was here? I listened to the speech, and I thought, did he crib my speech from the ADA? I thought, how strange. I'm so flattered. Then I realized that, of course, he had made the speech 7 months before I gave the speech. We were saying the same thing. It's not, you don't have to be brilliant to see where this thing has to go. I tried very hard to get Mario Cuomo to run for president. I tried to get Wellstone to run. I tried to get Jesse Jackson to run. I tried to get Gephardt to run. And, well, I've always tried to get Kennedy to run. So, what did you ask me?
I just asked you to talk about the candidates that you would...
You did. Well, look at them. Look at them. They've devoted their lives to public service. They're terrific men. Look what they've had to wade through over the past 12, 15 years.
Final two, this young lady and this lady, and then we'll close.
Hi.
Where are you?
Oh, here. My name is Robin. You're urging the Democratic presidential candidates to return to the principles of the Democratic Party of your youth. And I just want you to elaborate on why you think it's a real political reality that a true liberal Democrat could be elected president anytime soon.
Well, you got to try. I don't think if it sounds as if you read that op-ed piece that I wrote. I think that agendae need to have a voice. You've got to believe in something and push the agenda. And maybe you'll win, maybe you'll lose. But you're never going to win if you don't try to change public opinion. You can't keep following public opinion polls. You've got to spend your popularity. The man who this school is named for, I think Dick, what were his approval ratings when he was killed? In the high 20s? They were in the high 20s, I think. You got to spend that popularity. You can't keep following this thing in public opinion polls, so you've got to change the public opinion. And if you can get people that are well-known or entertaining or whatever to help change public opinion, that's the culture we're living in. We can mourn that we've devolved to that point, but that is the culture that we're living in.
I'm Priska Shrewsbury. I'm a freshman at the college. And regarding your plan to publicly finance the primaries, how do you plan to respond to the thousands of Americans who decide they want to run for the presidency or for Congress on the public dime? And how would increased candidacy affect your $3 per American figure?
Let me go to the first part first, and then, because you kind of lost me on the second part. You have to make the requirements for being on the ballot stringent enough that everybody can't do it. You have a small, you say you have to take X number of signatures, X number of people that spend, let's say, $5 to put your name on the ballot, and you find the appropriate requirement for being on that ballot. And it may, some say it will cost more. You can make an argument that it'll cost less also. So you're not referring to the cost, you're referring to the confusion, right? Well, you know, it comes out of the democratic process. You make those requirements as stringent as you need to make them. What was the second part of the thing about?
The second part is, with the increased number of candidates that there would probably be, how does that affect the figure that it would only be the price of half a movie ticket?
Well, first of all, a real campaign finance reform is going to involve free television time. That's a huge savings of money. And then also, I think something like 30 or 35% of the money that's spent in politics is spent raising money. So if you save 35% there, and then you're saving this television time, that's where most of the money goes, into television time, the great probability is it's going to cost less. If there were the same number of candidates running, it would definitely cost way less. It would cost half as much. But maybe you'll have more candidates. You'll have more points of view. You'll have more participation. You'll have more people enthusiastically participating in the process, and people will come out and vote. Less than half of the people are voting now.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay. That's fun. That's fun. Thank you.
I want to say something now.
Shall I sit down?
Yeah. Warren, thank you. This was very special, a very powerful and provocative message. I think that all of us who do public life admire passion. If you don't have any passion about this game, get out of it. If you're just there to cut ribbons and get your picture